Brodes Media.
Whether you like it or not, we are going to see DeAndre Jordan out there again because Doc Rivers is clueless. Doc Rivers has no idea what he's doing, and Doc Rivers must be blind because I don't know how you can possibly continue to play that disaster on the floor. Now, after the game, he's discussing how he was talking to the team, and they mentioned wanting a big man that can roll. I don't care what they mention because what they choose or what they chose did not work, and it did not benefit this basketball team. I'll give you all the numbers on how much of a disgrace it was out of DeAndre Jordan as we get into the show. But wow, oh wow. The Sixers lose game one in Miami. Welcome on into Sports Talk with Brodes. Not having Joel Embiid suck the life out of me before tip-off even began. There's no sugarcoating that. I had some faith that maybe they could pull this one out, and we saw better defense in the first half. They were up one at half. Tobias Harris was balling. We saw some good zone defense. We even watched them defensively with the dribble handoff. I thought they did some really good things throughout multiple possessions to give them an advantage by looking at what Miami was doing with those dribble handoffs and really applying pressure throughout those moments, but it all evaporated by the end. Tyler Hero coming off the bench and drilling shots, and I don't want to break it down so simplistic because there is more to it than just make or miss type of league, but there were so many golden opportunities to drill a shot that if you shoot the basketball from deep in today's game, 6 of 34 for 17.6%, I don't know how many basketball games you are going to win. I thought George Niang looked horrific again. Paul Reed's picking up a ton of fouls. Even though he did way better than DeAndre Jordan, it's still problematic to pick up 5 fouls the way that he does. And you got to be better. I mean, that is really hurting this basketball team that we can't have you out there longer, and we desperately need your number called right now. On top of that, Matisse Thybulle is an absolute horrific basketball player that really did take away his entire postseason run for one decision that, once again, I will point out as a miserable, pathetic, disturbing decision made by Matisse Thybulle. It looks like he doesn't even remember how to play the sport of basketball out there. There's no pop in his game. He just stands there offensively because he has zero rhythm on the offensive side. Not that he's the number one reason why this team was not winning this game. And quite frankly, even if there were other decisions made, I just don't know if they have enough firepower to overcome not having Joel Embiid out there. And I'll point out that James Harden sucked. James Harden was not good enough. But if we're going to demand James Harden to take over games at this stage of his career by scoring the basketball at will, well, then we're just fools for expecting something that's no longer in his body. Now, he has more than what he gave you today. I don't know if he gave you more than what he gave you today necessarily means the Sixers are going to win. Now, obviously, throughout the stretches where they did have some life, maybe they go on a bigger run and Miami has to come back from a bigger deficit, so that third quarter changes, and I mean the offensive rebounds were going to be there, right? But it's not as if DeAndre Jordan even helps you clean the glass so you can live with that result. He's not helping you whatsoever, and I'm still watching smaller guys grab boards and put it back up even when DeAndre Jordan is out there. So at that point, you got to give me something different. I'll live with Paul Millsap over DJ. I'll live with Bassie, of course, and Paul Reed until he fouls out. Like, you are going to have to utilize a different player because he will pick up his third foul and he'll pick up his fourth foul where you still need a lot of action and you still need a lot of minutes logged in. So someone else has to be ready. But anyone except for DeAndre Jordan needs to be the philosophy out of the head coach. It's hard to lose your MVP caliber guy and think that you're going to win many games in the postseason. Now, this Miami Heat team is a beatable bunch. They don't have an elite talent that you should be afraid of. Jimmy Butler got destroyed when you think of the matchup, right? Because it was Jimmy Butler, it was Tobias Harris, who you're going to sign to the long-term deal. Tobias Harris won that with ease. It wasn't even close when you look at how the two individually played out and you look at both guys' nights. Jimmy Butler struggled 5 of 16 from the field for his 15 points. So it's like the best player on the court in this. I mean, Bam is what he is. He had a bigger day because of the deficiencies of the Sixers more so than anything else. If Joel Embiid is in there, we don't talk about Bam's explosive run and Bam's explosive points. Tyler Hero maybe, but all around, I thought Tobias was the better player out of really everyone out there. Tyler Hero, of course, definitely did have some run. I'm not going to pretend like that wasn't massive at all, but, you know, just in terms of what you could rely more on, though, Tyler Hero is a dude who's willing to fire a lot of threes, but I think Tobias Harris in this game gave you the more structured all-around game. It just came down to, unfortunately, not having the help. And getting back to James Harden, when we discuss James Harden, if you feel that he's in a spot in his career where he's just going to take over and manhandle games with his scoring, it's just not who he is anymore. So, I mean, I'm not going to scream and bang the table that that's who he needs to be. It's not who he is. What he does is he dominates games with facilitating. So if you're going to miss all of your shots when he is facilitating, well, then you're really going to have a difficult time trying to win the basketball game. Going and looking at some numbers. Here's everybody from 3. Harden was 2 of 7. Maxey was 1 of 6. Danny Green was 1 of 5. Harris was 1 of 4. Korkmaz 1 of 2. Shake 1 of 2. Thibault 0 of 2. Niang 0 of 7. I mean, when one guy is really strong at getting everybody set and running an offense, and that is what his number one thing is in his game right now, and that's where James Harden is, those numbers won't balance out. It just won't work. He won't dominate a game the way we need him to, because now what happens is when you have a superstar, you're demanding a superstar to do his job. That's a one-step process. When you don't have superstar talent like Joel Embiid is, now it becomes a multi-layer process, which makes it a harder percentage to complete. Now James Harden has to get Tobias Harris, has to get Maxey, has to get Niang, has to get everybody else involved too. So that's step 1. And then step 2 is they need to execute. You see how it now becomes a harder of a percentage to accomplish because you're asking for more things to occur. And that's why having that superstar talent is extremely beneficial. Now, I need more from James Harden. There's more in this version of James than we got today, and I demand him to be better. That's just, quite frankly, what it needs to be. James Harden needs to be a way better basketball player than he was today. I think there's a middle ground. I can't demand him to be the Houston James Harden. That's just foolish and unfair because that's not what is in his bag anymore. I've seen a more efficient version of the facilitating / still having that aggressive mindset and being better, knocking down his shots and being someone who's willing to be more of an aggressor when he does have the basketball and looking to score. We got to find that middle ground, and that's what you're going to need to win a basketball game in Miami without Embiid to get us to a Philadelphia 76ers Wells Fargo Center with the series split. There was a time where I was way in a better mood about what I saw and thought, okay, look, I mean, they definitely played hard. I give them their credit for that. And I don't think they didn't play hard. Maxey might have not have played extremely well, but you could tell when he was out there, I mean, he was giving you everything he had. Tobias was giving you everything that he had. I think James Harden, to a degree, it kind of gave you what he had. This is just the version of James Harden that we have in 2022. He has excellent nights. He has average nights. He has poor nights. This is James Harden. Let me just stress that this is what James Harden is. I don't think they didn't try hard. You just don't have your superstar talent. But they were hanging in there until it kind of got blew out of the water. Offensive rebounds galore. We knew that they had problems even with the big fella back there when it comes to grabbing rebounds. So what do we anticipate when he wasn't going to be available? It's going to be even uglier. There are some tweets that I took pictures of, screenshots of, just to throw it out there. And these are all stats to prove how pathetic DeAndre Jordan was. The Heat scored 50 points in DeAndre Jordan's 17 minutes and 56 points during the 31 minutes he sat. That is insane. That's from Jackson Frank. Here's, I accidentally cut off the person who tweeted this out, so I apologize. With DeAndre Jordan on the floor tonight, the Sixers were outscored by 71.5 points per 100 possessions. Scored 29 points on 33 offensive possessions, which is .88 per possession. Allowed 51 points on 32 possessions. It is crazy how bad of a basketball player he is. At one point, we saw Maxey, Korkmaz, Tobias, Niang, and Millsap. Niang is hitting that territory of almost unplayable. He is so slow. Remember when I used to bash Furkan Korkmaz all the time for how unplayable he was in postseason? Even if he has regular season success, it doesn't matter because when these players lock down more, they buy into the defense differently. And you could tell that the half-court sets plays a big role in the pace of the game, which I thought the zone did a good job of slowing it down and letting the Sixers find some comfortability so they were able to get into a groove. But that clearly was lost in that second half. George Niang, it might be starting to get there where he's unplayable. And I hate to break it to everybody, but there's not many options to go to. Why do you have to go to Furkan? Because Matisse Thybulle blows. Why do you have to play Niang? Because he's a body who, I would have thought we'd be able to get a little more out of him, to be fair. I knew he had limitations. Trust me, he's in the mud. We always say out the mud and whatever, the Daryl Morey last year, out the mud, all that stuff. B-ball Paul. You want to talk about in the mud? That's George Niang's feet. They're cement. He can't get it out. It's quicksand. We were very aware of that. But I did expect a little more beef. I thought there'd be a little bit more meat to the bones out of him. But he's basically someone who subs in and I start to cry because I'm fully aware that it's going to be a mess. And he's going to get targeted. So I don't know what you do. I'm not even against Tobias Harris being your small ball 5 at times. How about Tobias, man? Come on. That is outrageous what he's doing. Phenomenal basketball. And everyone criticized him last year saying that he had a horrific, awful, pathetic playoff run. No, he didn't. It's not as bad as you're making it out to be. 37% from 3 and 22 points per game is nothing to just laugh at when you're playing with a Ben Simmons who wasn't even capable of doing anything offensively. But wow, you could win with this version of Tobias Harris. If Embiid's on the floor, he's available, he's dominating. If we get a strong facilitating James Harden, which is just not something that you could rely on every single night, unfortunately, and this version of Tobias on this playoff run is your third option. I mean, let's look at the Milwaukee Bucks, for example. What Giannis is doing without Middleton that we saw in Game 1, phenomenal. But Drew Holiday as a third option. Think about Tobias Harris as a third option, and that's what Milwaukee won with. You can win with him. And I know we'll be talking about things in the offseason and all. I'm not trying to get into a long-term discussion and offseason moves by any means. But this is winnable playoff basketball for a number 3 by a long shot, too. This is very solid for that. Damn. I'm so impressed, too. Not is it about some of the shots that he's making where he picks up his dribble. It's a mid-range jumper, but he's fading away. His back is turned to the basket, and it's nothing but net. There's so much confidence involved to target a matchup that he feels he could expose due to size. But I've seen him try that in years past, or I've seen him try that in earlier months this season, and it was just tough to see. It would be short. I don't know if his legs weren't underneath him. Remember, there was the whole COVID debacle, though, and the team missed so much time. Maybe there was a relationship between that, or a correlation, maybe is a better word, between that and why it was so bad in those early stages. But the way that he's give me the ball and let me go. Now, I mean, I'm watching the third quarter play out, and I see the team relying on that so heavily. And once I recognized, okay, it's every possession, give the ball to Toby and say, go get me a bucket. While I appreciate it, and I think it's fucking awesome that he's doing this, You can't rely on that ever. You give the ball to Drew Holiday every possession. That's not good. You can't give the ball every possession to Tobias Harris, but there just weren't any other options, and you basically had to pray that he would bail you out. I can't get over Doc Rivers either. I mean, really, Doc? What did he say afterwards? Whether you like it or not. Well, we hate it, Doc, because everyone with eyeballs, and even people who listen to the game, they hear exactly what we hear. They see exactly what we see. A basketball player, although the TNT broadcast today made it seem like that DeAndre Jordan wasn't that bad. He sucked. It was so bad. The fact that he's trying to actually acknowledge that there was some good out of it, it makes me want to throw up, Doc. This is why you are discussed the way that you are discussed.